Next up, we have Liz Rogers. Liz is the founder and creative director of Anacrusis, where she oversees new signings, writer development, and pitching creatively for Sync. Liz is also an independent music supervisor, working on several films and documentaries, and is a member of the Guild of Music Supervisors. Liz is the associate music event producer for the Nashville Film Festival and an advisor for the Entrepreneurship Center. She was recently honored as Nashville's 30 Under 30 and was recognized by the Nashville Business Journal on the esteemed power players list of women in Music City. Welcome, Liz.
Hey everyone, thank you. I'm definitely going to use notes. Woody was confident enough to not look at his once, but I'm going to use mine for sure. So, super excited to be here, by the way. This has been such a great morning. So many amazing stories, and I actually was planning on coming to this before they asked me to speak. So, super excited all around to be involved and to be learning from so many amazing entrepreneurs. It's really fun to just kind of be in the room with a lot of alums, friends, peers. This room also, as many of us have mentioned, has a lot of weird sentimental attachment because we went to school here and had strange events and functions in this room. So that's a fun fact. I am a 2011 grad. I actually was also an adjunct faculty member for a few years here as well. So a lot of ties to Vandy world. So my name's Liz. A bit of backstory. I grew up in a family surrounded by entrepreneurs. My dad was an entrepreneur. He started several different businesses, successful, some pivoting, some acquired. My brothers all went on to start businesses as well in different industries. I kind of had a lot of bird's eye views on some and really hands-on views in others. But dinner conversations in our family were about fundraising rounds and growth and when to pivot and learning about creating a niche and building something unique and special. And we even moved as a family. I saw the pivots that it took to build a business. So I ended up at Vanderbilt, obviously, as you know. And I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I actually came in as a double major, double minor, which we will definitely talk about. On one hand, that I really wanted to learn all the things, and I'm so glad that I did. But on the other hand, doing a lot of things is not necessarily the right approach. I think I have learned a lot about focus since college, and that is what I am here to hopefully instill in you as well. Also, as many people have mentioned, we didn't have any kind of business program, any Center for Entrepreneurship when we were here, and this is an incredible resource for those of you who are students here. Like, please dig in and meet founders and find investors and like fully embrace this community because it's incredible. And the Wondery and all the different opportunities that have happened and come up on campus since I've been here, I'm just kind of like Woody said, really proud to be an alum and be involved and be able to kind of come back and give my time back in that way. So when I graduated here, again, I didn't quite know exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work in music, but I didn't want to work in country music. That wasn't my strength, that wasn't my passion. I had been volunteering with the film festival for years through college and then out of college, and I had kind of seen the music and film intersection, and out of college I got a job in experiential marketing where I got to see the music and brand intersection. I was working in creating events for brands that were not music-focused brands and really seeing how they utilized music and how that elevated their product and how that helped their customer base have a better experience understanding their product. And I saw that potential for a real niche in the music licensing world that Nashville didn't have at the time. That was licensing is music in film, music in television, music in advertising, video games, anything where you see music put to content. So there were a couple companies here doing that, and I say that loosely because they weren't necessarily focusing on that. They were not focusing on licensing, but they also weren't focusing on Nashville specifically. Those companies just happened to be based here. And the talent pool in Nashville is far more than country music. It's so diverse. We have so much incredible pop, hip hop, alternative, electronic, and that is primarily the music that is used in licensing. When you think of a Target commercial or an Apple commercial, what kind of music comes to mind? It's probably not country music. And chances are probably not top 40 country music like Luke Bryan, which is the majority of what the companies here focus on. And there is a reason why they are successful in what they do, but there's also a reason why there was not much licensing happening in Nashville. So I decided that I would start something. I met with dozens of potential clients, music executives at major studios and brands, and I asked them what was most helpful and least helpful for them in thinking that if I could kind of structure a business around what the client ultimately needed, I would be ahead of the game. So across the board, almost everyone I met with said something to the extent of, companies that say that they do a bit of everything, or companies that have a little bit of everything, are not helpful to us. And that really surprised me, because I would think that coming in with a wide variety of music, a really diverse roster, would help position us in front of more brands. But I realized that if I was going to do this, I needed to hone in on a niche. And I really wanted to stay in Nashville, and I wanted to help champion the Nashville non-country scene. And there were plenty of resources and companies championing country artists and championing artists from around the world. And so I decided that we're going to focus on non-country, Nashville-based artists, specifically independent, unsigned, finding those cool, emerging alternative sounds and prioritizing and pouring into that community. So I set off, and I launched Anacrusis. Quick side note here, most of you who are students probably know, but a niche is a hole in the current market, I'm going to read the definition exactly, where your USP, your unique selling proposition, is appreciated by a select group of customers or your target audience who may be currently underserved. So it's identifying that hole in the market. And that's what's really important to remember. As your ideas take shape and your company begins to grow, all of us entrepreneurs, us dreamers and creators, run the risk of getting too excited about all of the great ways that we can grow. At the end of the day, that's what makes us great entrepreneurs, right? Dreaming big. But I think early stage is the most critical time to step back and not get too ahead of yourself and actually take that time to refocus. And as we began to have notable success, a lot of artists outside of Nashville, outside of the pop and rock communities began to approach us. Country artists, country companies who wanted us to represent them and their artists. And it definitely made us consider, should we broaden our focus? As you grow, this will undoubtedly come up. Sometimes the question comes from clients or potential customers. Sometimes it comes internally from your staff or your team or your advisory board. People will ask you, can you customize this? Or you don't serve this audience, but can you? Sticking to a niche might not be right for your company or for forever, but early on, really honing in on what you do well is important. Why did you start your company? Hopefully it's because you bring something new and unique and different, something that is filling this gap in the marketplace that you have studied, that niche, that reason. I've been an advisor at the Entrepreneur Center for several years now, and I've seen businesses struggle with this question over and over, and seen companies expand too quickly and get too excited and create other verticals that they then become too overwhelmed with. Let's use this hypothetical. Let's say that you own a tea company. You've studied the tea market extensively. There's a gap missing in the local tea scene, and you know how to service that gap. You open a store that sells this specialty kind of tea. But one day, a customer says to you, well, you should serve coffee too. But should you? Is there a gap in the coffee scene? Have you studied that? What you bring that is new and different to the tea space, you don't understand necessarily in the coffee market. Maybe the coffee market is a larger market, but does taking time away to learn about coffee from what you're doing in the tea market really serve your business? If you have an established customer base and they are coming to you and you have the opportunity to grow, then you can assess expanding. But back to my example of my company, when we were approached with country artists and artists that were based in Chicago and Atlanta, and we definitely had the opportunity to assess expanding, it really became something that we had to weigh in on why we focused on Nashville. And again, I'll just take a minute to define kind of what we did well, so that you can understand the challenges. By focusing on non-country artists, first of all, we knew and we understood that demographic. We understood our clients who used that kind of music. We had built a rapport with them. They were now coming to us to say, hey, we're working on this new campaign, what do you have? Who do you work with that could fit this new sound? We became known as a tastemaker, and they were relying on us, and we had established that trust. So by looking at expanding into country music, we not only didn't know that market well, but we didn't have customers and clients that we could immediately turn to. In fact, it would have confused our clients when we suddenly started pitching something that didn't fit what we had established with our roster and what they did well. Finding new opportunities for a Luke Bryan single is very different than finding an opportunity for a young emerging hip hop artist who might be perfect for the next Nike campaign. And that was our niche. That was what we had built a rapport for. We knew our client base. We knew which brands wanted cool emerging artists, and we didn't know the brands, which I challenge you to think of a brand that consistently uses country music. So not only would that pull our focus away for ourselves and our clients, but it would also become confusing in terms of what we were presenting. We also had an opportunity at one point to expand to a more retainer-based model, where a company that was bringing on their own artists was asking us to then rep them. And sure, it sounds enticing for a startup to pivot to a retainer model, but we then would pull focus away from our existing roster in a way that we, with a retainer, were then obliged to put those artists in front of our clients. And that wasn't something that we felt was fair to all the artists that we had already signed. Again, similarly, when you're looking at artists from around the country and around the world, we didn't know those artists. We were really boots on the ground here in Nashville, championing the local scene, and to expand our focus to cover markets like Chicago or Atlanta or Amsterdam or Sweden, like you all of a sudden get into this whole new area of where are our priorities, where is our time management going, and what happened to our initial signings and our initial niche. Along the same lines, I would like to talk about a controversial topic that is the detriment of being a jack of all trades. I think when people give this advice of, you want to try a little bit of everything or learn a little bit of everything or take all the courses or sign up for that extracurricular or that club, they mean well when they're giving this advice. I heard it my entire childhood. Try this, learn this, really become someone who knows a little bit of everything. But when deciding who we were going to sign, that ultimately was a disservice. We were looking at artists and writers and producers, and they were saying, oh, well, I do a little bit of everything. I can work in any genre of music. And ultimately, that wasn't helpful. As I mentioned earlier, when asking our potential clients what's helpful for them, hearing that a company does a little bit of everything is ultimately a disservice. We found that when we were finding a producer or a songwriter who really honed in on something specific and truly excelled at that, they understood the nuances of that genre of music. They studied the artists, and they knew that space. That was someone that we could truly help. Again, it's most helpful for us to understand what you do best so that we can then provide opportunities for you. Being a jack of all trades may help you if you want to work in a startup space for a startup, even as a founder. But I challenge you to think, is it best for your company? Is it best for your company to do a little bit of everything? Remember, the focus is on that customer niche. Imagine you have a big decision to make. You are planning your wedding, the most important day of your life, and you need to choose your wedding cake. And there's a company that makes cakes and cupcakes and cookies and pastries, and you've had their cookies and you love them. They're amazing. You love their croissants. You've had a lot of their pastries. But then there's a company that exclusively makes wedding cakes. They work with brides and wedding planners 100% of the time to understand their needs best. Who would you trust for your big day? Ultimately, for me, focusing on the Nashville market has served us well. My clients know and trust our company for being on the forefront of artist discovery here in Nashville, boots on the ground, and we become a go-to source for music projects for dozens of campaigns for that reason. Remember, this is why I started my company. Focus on your niche, focus on your USP, focus on your customer base. And before I wrap it up, I think I have a little bit of time. I don't know if you caught this earlier, but I grew up in a family of male entrepreneurs. A big part of my entrepreneurial story has been focused on female founders, and I now have 5 nieces that I struggle to find books to read with them that present female entrepreneurs, and I have been encouraged that while given the stage, I should mention that I wrote a book about young females starting businesses. So if you have, thank you. If you have young little ones in your life, I brought a few copies. I'm happy to mention it later, but it's really fun. It's about a little girl who starts an ice cream shop. I mean, what is more fun than that? It's about her hiring journey and building a team of people with different strengths and honing in on her niche. And I think that even as adults, it has a lot of good takeaways that we can kind of remember when we're starting our own companies. So again, the takeaway for me and hopefully for you is to focus, limit your distractions early on so that you can focus on what you do best. Thank you.